Doghouse podcast is back. Great return guest, Coach Hayes from the Coach Hayes Film Room and Dog Dispatch. We talk about Georgia's spring practice, thoughts on why the spring game is not being televised, spring practice buzz, Georgia's strengths and Georgia's weaknesses. We're going to talk about that. Will Jared Curtis be an Oregon Duck or a Georgia Bulldog? Coach Hayes will give his crystal ball prediction on that. And is there any chance Georgia will take a running back in the transfer portal after the spring? Make sure to like, subscribe, share the podcast. That really helps out. Doghouse podcast is back. Great return guest, Coach Hayes from the Coach Hayes Film Room. How are we doing today?
Doing great, Trey. I'm glad to be back with you, getting after it, getting ready for this beautiful weather that we're dealing with. And obviously spring ball is in the air and a lot of good things to talk about with Georgia athletics right now.
Yeah, can't believe we're in early April here and spring G-Day will be here right away. First off on that, I know not going to be televised, which I wanted to ask your thoughts on that. And I believe you're going to be there in attendance. So what's your whole thoughts on this whole no television, maybe even canceling the spring games? What's your feeling on it?
You know, it's really tough to sit there and say that it's because of the NIL era and people trying to snatch people from the portal. I'm not really upset that they're not televising it. I know there's money lost in those adventures because obviously television promotes a lot of dollar bills. But if Kirby probably had it anyway right now, he probably has it the best way he's ever had it. I know as a coach, you're mentally exhausted through the spring because you're trying to see what your team is made of. You're trying to build grit. You're trying to build mental toughness, all while trying to establish a depth chart. That's really what spring is about. And when you look at G-Day, even though it is something for the fans and they look at it that way from our perspective, looking inwardly from a helicopter's view, it seems unfair because those people who can't make the game would love to watch and see how they're playing. I'm going to get a chance to go. I bought tickets to go to be able to see them in person because personally, I want to see Ryan Puglisi throw a freaking football. I'm ready to watch him throw one. And so by that nature, I'm going to be there. But going back to your question, I really think that Coach Smart probably has it the best way he can. It's not televised, so that's less taxing on the team and the efforts of what they're wanting to do, because to him it's just the 15th practice. He can make the scrimmage however he wants to, but somehow we kind of get sort of corkscrewed into this mentality of making it like a game. You know what I would love for him to do? Hey, I want you to line up at the 20-yard line and let's run 20 red zone plays under 1st and 10 scenarios and 2nd and 5 scenarios and 3rd and 3 scenarios, and build up the scoring patterns and run all sorts of different formations where it's run or pass and full team 11 on 11. Heck, if anything, let them line up and run some skelly on both sides of the field. You got 7 on 7 going on one side, 7 on 7 going on the other. So it's almost like you're getting to watch a simulated practice that has more team and more skelly group and more group positions instead of maybe individual positions, and you get the best of both worlds. But Coach Smart, I think, kind of likes that because now he's not sort of held and constrained to a window of time that he's got to try to produce reps, because it's all about the reps you get. They want to see 60, 70, 80 reps from every individual position player and position group to see how well they perform under stress, under duration, under fatigue, under mental fatigue, and being able to perform and seeing who shows up and who shows out. So I'm not really, my feelings aren't hurt because it's not televised. I hate it for the fans who obviously can't be there and show up and go to a game. But, that just gives me the opportunity personally to be able to go see the game. But if I didn't choose to go see it or wasn't going to go see it, I know that realistically we are going to be just in the same situation as we would if it was televised. We're going to go in with a lot of speculation to the summer. We're going to have probably still some question marks at certain positions because we got kids hurt right now or recovering from postseason surgery. So I'm not really necessarily bothered by the whole scenario. And as a coach, I kind of feel for Coach Smart He won't really admit it, but I really do think that he probably feels that this situation actually might be a little bit better. I do think if they move the portal window and we get down to one portal window a year, which I think it needs to be right during that time towards the end of the college football playoff time, where everybody has the same window at the same time. You remove the portal window post spring, all of a sudden all these spring games will be back. I think Matt Rule and Lincoln Riley and the rest of that group that, decided to not pursue it, even Sark,
Mhm.
I think they're just going way overboard with this. I think it gets to the point where, hey, if you don't want to do a spring game, you don't want your fans to necessarily have to attend an actual structured game. Let them come watch, structured practice. Let them come watch what you do and change the environment of the game and still get something beneficial from it, but also benefit the fan too.
Yeah, interesting thoughts on all that. I guess for the fan perspective, what kind of attendance if you go in person? I know, that we're coming off the 2016 when Kirby Smart came in, 93K day, and I think it's been pretty, maybe not that high, but consistent. What kind of attendance do you think it'll be? And I believe it's Masters weekend too, so that
It
might be
is.
another
It
day.
is. It is Masters weekend, which I think dives into it a little bit. I would say you are probably looking at half of the. I want to say half. You're probably thinking about 35,000 maybe be there. What they try to do is they always at least try to cover up one half of the field. And so, if that place holds about 96, 97,000, I believe is what the latest capacity is. I'd say about half of that. Believe it or not, I think because it's not televised, that might pique some interest of some people to get out and come to the game. And I think that's going to be the difference maker of the people who are going to be there versus the ones who are maybe, necessarily Masters bound. Because like I said, with the Masters, as much as you love that, I mean, you got to have a pretty hot ticket to get to go to the Masters. I know as well as anybody. I'm a big golfer, love golf, and enjoy the game. And I know how hard it was over the years. My dad and myself trying to find tickets. We always went to practice rounds. We never even got a chance to go to actual rounds. So, hit me up there if any of you out there who know getting me some tickets. Maybe would love to definitely go. But I would say you're probably looking to half, less than half. But still, I'm thinking there's going to be a pretty good showing. I would think at least 35,000 plus is probably going to be in attendance to the game.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. And I believe it's going to be 1 p.m. and also going to be on the old school Georgia Sports Radio Network. I think my mom was excited about it because she was asking. And she was always hoping, she's old school, but watching it on like SEC Network replays. But I don't think they're going to be doing any of that. So I guess
there won't be anybody there to, as far as the televised part of it. And that's part of losing revenue to it. But, Josh Brooks is aware of that, knows that situation. I think he's an advocate for Kirby, always has been. I think that's the reason why we see good things coming from him as an AD. I've really enjoyed his time there now so far. He's really doing a great job with the programs across the board. So, yeah, for some of those fans who want to see some things that go along with it, unfortunately, they're going to have to wait just a little bit longer before they finally see that red and black on the TV screen again.
That's right. Yeah, appreciate that. And before we talk about that, we're going to talk about great sponsor of the show, BeWithTequilaSeltzer.com. 0 carbs, 0 sugar. Great sponsor of the podcast. My personal favorite is the watermelon, also huckleberry, and grapefruit is great as well. 20% off, Doghouse 20. Again, that's Doghouse 20 for 20% off. BeWithTequilaSeltzer.com. Check them out we got round of golf coming up. We'll have spring breaks ending and also be at the pool before we know it. So check them out. Be with Tequila Seltzer. Check them out on Instagram as well. And Coach Hayes, looking at a couple of questions here. So the strengths or some buzz that you've heard heading into the spring game, and also maybe some weaknesses from what you've heard on the rumor mill and any of your notes.
From everything that I've done breaking down so far, since there are a lot of unknowns, the one place we know we have a lot of strength at is inside linebacker. When you look at the returning of CJ Allen, who to me is the leader of this football team, not just the defense, but to me the football team, along with Raylan Wilson, they've got a lot of snaps between them at inside linebacker, followed up by some extreme talent with Justin Williams and Chris Cole. Chris Cole got a lot of spot play last year on third downs, and we saw what a freak of nature he was, and all he's going to do is get better. He's continuing to be talked about, and we're already beginning to see him in pressers now, speaking to the press, and that just lets you know the trust that Coach Smart has for those guys that he lets come out there and speak. Justin Williams also has had a chance to speak and get a chance to talk, and honestly, nowadays that's what's having to happen. We're not seeing kids last till their senior year anymore. So these sophomore kids or redshirt freshmen, if they got redshirted, basically second year kids are having the opportunity now to step up to the podium and be able to talk, because for the most part, if these kids get that opportunity, more than likely this year and next year is their years to shine anyway. So you're normally not seeing a kid last 4 years anymore. If it is, it's an anomaly. But we're going to be very solid at the inside linebacker position. If you look at all the position groups that we have, safety, defensive back, and defensive line, I think we're still going to have some opportunity because we've got elite talent in all those spots. The only problem is we don't have a lot of proven talent in those spots. And when it comes down to it, you need to be between the ears as talented as you are athletically talented. And so, I'm looking at our strengths, especially at the inside linebacker position. I don't think we're going to have any problems taking care of the run from the second level. I would say the weaknesses that we have right now, if I look at all the position groups, I think we have the provided depth in every spot, and it's a matter of finding the right sort of Swiss Army knife, the right keys to kind of go in the lock per se. But what I'm really worried about is because of our history over the last couple of years is our running back room. And something that worries me about our running back room is that a Branson Robinson and, Roderick Robinson, who have been dealing with injury year in and year out, they haven't really had a solid 2 years together yet, along with a Nate Frazier, who proved himself to be a great running back last year, but he can't be an every down back. I mean, he's a scat back. I know he's a tough kid, and I know obviously he wants to be out there improving, and what he did last year showed that he can do that and sustain that in the SEC, but he needs a complement to that. And so with Dwight Phillips and Chauncey Bowens, that entire class now is who we're looking to count on, along with a Cash Jones, who's a veteran. I think he catches the ball in the backfield very well. He's got solid play, but he's still not a bruising back like what Branson Robinson and Roderick Robinson bring. We need that thunder to the lightning in our running game. And unfortunately, those two have been so unproven. We just don't know. They're kind of like just that question mark in front of their faces of what are they going to be able to bring? Because right now neither one of them are practicing. Branson's still recovering from his MCL surgery and PCL issue. And then, of course, Roderick, I think it went from a foot to a toe or a toe to a foot. I can't remember which one it was. But, still, here they are, on the depth chart in the running back room with Coach Crawford. And, they're not even getting to practice. So what have they seen all spring so far? They've seen Nate Frazier, second-year kid, Chauncey Bowen, second-year kid, Dwight Phillips Jr., second-year kid, Cash Jones. And, and then, of course, everybody's talking real heavily. And that's the reason why Bo Walker is getting a lot of hype, because he is the new kid on the block. But still, man, coming in and turning heads is great. In spring, it's nice. But he hasn't got any choice. I mean, he's got to get out there and get some things done to provide the depth to the running back room. So that, to me, right now is the biggest weakness to the Georgia football team, which is odd because, it seems like year in and year out, Coach Dale McGee had a staple of two guys that just seemingly were that stapled group together with a very complementary group behind them. And since Dejon Edwards and Kendall Milton, left to go to the NFL or on to other things, since then, obviously we haven't had that sort of same stability, and that really bugs me. So that would be probably right now my biggest weakness to all the position groups for Georgia right now.
Yeah, all great points there. I had heard good things about Bo Walker. So they want to go back to, do you think Coach Crawford only taking a 3-star in the 2025 class, is that maybe kind of on him? And it felt like Georgia's kind of taking a step back the last couple of years. Of course, Nate Frazier was a great recruit. And then also my other question is, any chance that Georgia would maybe go in the portal for a running back, since they're kind of light in the running back room?
Well, I do know this. When Trey Scott came to us as a defensive line coach, there was a lot of people who questioned his ability to recruit as well. And all of a sudden, you've seen where that's gone over the last 2 or 3 years with what he's been producing. He's been like a defensive line factory, especially with the Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Devontae White groups that came out in the last couple of years. Trayvon Walker, really don't include him as a D lineman, even though he was what he did on the defensive line, but, just great talent coming out of there. And that's unprecedented for a group to come out with that many high-end recruits that actually go on, to be day one picks in the NFL. So we got to give Josh Crawford time. I know this is his third year going into the system now, so I'm really interested to see what his recruiting ability is going to be this year. He's got to find two solid backs, and right now they do have a lot on the radar, and I know there's a lot of them that are very heavily excited about Georgia offering them. I haven't had a chance to do a lot of work into the 2026 group yet. That was for the people like Rusty Mansell and Jeff Sintel to take care of. But, I look at once they start showing Georgia on their radar, that's when it starts to pick up on the old Hayes radar too. And I start looking at and evaluating their talent to see if they are legit or not. And I'm going to give Josh Crawford one more year, but if he only brings in one more running back next year, that's going to start making me question why they're not coming to Georgia. But I don't think that's the case. I just have to, in my gut, it doesn't tell me that. I think it's just basically what the running back class was last year and what it is so far this year. I think we're going to have to definitely pick up 2, maybe 3 running backs this year, similar to what we did with the wide receiver core. We went out and got the guys out of the transfer portal, and we signed a very solid class. I think we're probably going to see after this year, and, we keep our fingers crossed, if Branson and Roderick end up coming back and stay healthy, I think we've got the talent in the running back room to take care of this year. But I wouldn't doubt if you see something very mirrored imaged or similar to what they did with the wide receiver room this past year. So to answer your question about the transfer portal, there is no doubt to me that that is the one possibility I could see us diving into, especially because they will know the prognosis of Roderick and Branson after spring going into the summer workouts and all the things that, because, man, when it gets summer, it starts getting real because games get here pretty quickly. And, they got to start practicing. They got to start getting in shape. That's going to be the questions throughout the summer. We're going to hear Kirby Smart almost get nauseated having to say, they're getting back. They're trying to get back into swinging things. They're acclimated to, getting in shape. They're out of shape right now. I can just hear him saying it right now to whoever asking the question. And that's what we're going to hear all summer about those two, even though they're
day to day, right? Week to week.
Exactly. The day to day, week to week, we're going to have to adjust to it to see what goes on with that. But I would say this, if he understands their prognosis and, he's sitting down with Coach Crawford in the meeting room, he may say, listen, we may need to be looking for somebody. That to me personally feels right, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's the way they're going to go. But it all really depends on and sort of hinges on how good they feel about the Robinson boys coming back this year and being a solid contributor to the program.
Yeah, the Robinson kids has been just injury plagued.
Mm-hmm.
And just I don't know. I wouldn't mind them maybe looking at the portal if there was somebody out there like a 4 or 5 star down on the depth chart, or it might have to roll with what they have, but we'll see. One other group I wanted to ask about is O-line group, just because I think they've had some injuries. Of course, Monroe Freeling's out. I think there was another one. Is it Calhoun?
Mm-hmm.
Got banged up recently. What's your thoughts on the O-line room? And
well,
I know they took a step back last year.
They did take a step back last year, but, they're going to sit there and claim that their execution was not where it needed to be at and that Coach Searles coaches their butt off every day. I know there's a lot of people out there that don't really have a very favorable thing to say about Coach Mike Bobo or Coach Stacy Searles. Stacy Searles is kind of personal to me because Stacy grew up in the same hometown I did. He graduated in 84. I graduated in 92. He went on to play at Auburn. He's a good friend of the family. His mom and dad, his actual mom worked with my dad forever in industry, textiles. And, so we've just known each other our entire lives. Of course, we're in a very small town, so everybody knew everybody anyway. But I've watched Stacy's career as he's gone through, where he went to Auburn. Obviously, I think he had a small stint in the NFL. I don't know where he originally started at it. I don't think it was Georgia, but he did end up coming to Georgia under Rick, then obviously went out to Texas. I think he had a small stint in Miami. I'm not sure when Coach Rick went to Miami or not, but then I know he finished up with North Carolina. under Brown, Coach Brown, and then came back to Georgia under Coach Smart. I watch his mentality. He's a little bit older than me. I know this guy's an OG guy. I know he gets after tail. I know he coaches hard, and I know he expects a lot of good things from these guys. I honestly don't think it's an issue of our program going downhill because Coach Searles has taken over our offensive line group. Some people would disagree with me on that. I think it's just a matter of having the right chemistry up front, because you got to have tackles and guards that work together on islands on back sides of your mic checks. You've got to have good rotations on X stunts on the play side to your mic checks with your center and guard, and your backside tackle, your blindside tackle typically has got to be an anchor man. He's got to lay it down and not let DNs get to the backside of your quarterback. And we just didn't see that consistency that we wanted to see. Guard, center, guard would work well. Tackle would break down. We get tackles finally taking care of the hinges and not letting them run the hoop, and we'd have a breakdown between a guard and center. There's a lot of things that go on with that, but the better off you execute and the more consistent you are, but it comes down to your chemistry of your front five. And unfortunately, due to the fact of having like Tate Ratledge hurt, Jared Wilson was hurt at the beginning of the season. I don't know, a lot of people realize that Drew Bobo took every snap in the Auburn game. I was at that game. Drew took every snap. Jared Wilson didn't take one snap or snap one ball in that game. So when you have inconsistency that way, and you are kind of playing sort of musical chairs of moving tackles to guards and guards to tackles and just trying to see what your best fits are, it's going to create those inconsistencies that we saw last year across the board. Realistically, 4 of our 5 guys have a ton of snaps under their belt. If you look at Ernest Green and Monroe Freeling and Micah Morris, and of course, Drew Bobo played 4 games last year. So he's got some snaps under his belt. The only one that's unproven is Daniel Calhoun. But this is beginning to be the tenure of the Big Six. When Coach Searles came back in his recruiting class, I've noticed that his Big Six, 2 of those guys, Michael Uni, who he's got now chalked up there to that guard right now because Daniel's out due to the injury. But Daniel Calhoun and Michael Uni both are, I don't know if you pronounce Uni or UNI, but it's UINI, I believe is how it's spelled, but it's a very unique last name. But anyhow, those 2 guys are Coach Searles' guys, and they are working over the top of Coach Luke's last year recruiters, people like Merriweather and Hewley, that were not Coach Searles' primary recruits. Coach Searles' primary recruits out of the 6, he's got 4 of them working either in the first line or the second line right now. And, that's going to be, to me, the biggest cohesive factor to see success this year. And I've said that since day one. If you're a coach, you've got to know that your defensive line and your offensive line are your most consistent, highly executory, if that's a word, execution type group that you have to have. They have to execute at a high level. If you have those 2 sides of the ball executing at a high level with decent depth, and you stay away from the injury bug, you're going to have a successful season. I don't care who you are. It all starts at the line of scrimmage. So that's a question mark, and is probably the reason I didn't use them as my weakness, because I think running back fits that a little bit more based off how poorly we ran the ball. But yet that also comes to the offensive line.
That's right.
So, with that being said, Daniel Calhoun, I thought out of the 6 he got, was the best one he got. So it's obvious that was a good take, because now he is the first one working up there with the ones at that right guard position. But again, that's the frustration of spring. He hasn't been able to take one freaking snap, I believe, this spring. Maybe at the beginning. I don't know if he got hurt mid-spring or if he was hurt prior to going into spring. But that's frustrating when you've got to set guys that you want to work together and start building that chemistry, and you're already down a guy or down 2 guys, because like I said, Monroe Freeland had the labral surgery in the offseason. So it is frustrating to see, but I am looking forward to see how that group comes together as we move into the summer.
Yeah, so it sounds like Georgia O-line might be a little under the radar, so maybe they'll be a little better than we thought. So
yeah, I think our expectations can go the right direction this time, because they were very high last year. They should have been, and they went downhill. So I think kind of having that unknown factor right now is actually a good thing. It's okay right now to see it that way, and we'll just see what happens as the summer comes on to us.
Yeah. Also, I think they're going to come in with a little chip on their shoulder. I'm sure they had to hear about it in the whole offseason.
You think? I'm sure they've heard it all offseason. They've heard everybody say that. I really thought it was great that Tate Ratledge kind of took it on the shoulder at the NFL Combine and sort of said, listen, he coaches the crap out of us. In fact, I love the way he coaches because he gets after our butts every day. And he didn't even, that's a G-rated version of what he said. My mentality is that you got to be a little tough on them, and you can't be afraid to hurt feelings because there's a lot of egos out there. And that's something I think Coach Searles doesn't even think twice about. I think he gets after them every day. He has high expectations for them. Tate and Xavier Truss and Dylan Fairchild, they all said the same thing. We got to execute better. And I think that's sort of the story across the board. And you're right. With a chip on their shoulder, I think we're going to see good things from them.
Let's hope so. Can't go anywhere but up, hopefully.
Yeah, I think so.
And then what everybody really wants to see when they go to the spring game, and I wanted to see what you've heard. So Gunnar Stockton versus Ryan Puglisi. Hopefully I'm saying that right.
Puglisi.
Yeah. So what have you heard from that? I know it's probably Gunnar's team coming in, but have heard Ryan's got a laser. He's got an arm on him.
Trey, you're going to find out very quickly that I have been a Puglisi fan since I've seen him throw the football. But the problem that Puglisi has is he still hasn't thrown a football in an actual game.
Right.
So that is the reason why it's Gunnar Stockton's show. Now, I'm going to say this. I think Ryan Puglisi has a high ceiling, but unfortunately, he's got to learn the offense better. And that's the same principle of what Gunnar Stockton's had to do as well. He's been there through the years of, the first year of Stetson Bennett, watching Carson Beck take the reps for the last 2 years. And now he's earned his keep. He's earned his time. And he goes out there and he performs. And that's the reason why I am perfectly fine with Coach Smart saying, okay, this is our guy. I trust Coach Smart. I've watched him, and we've questioned him for so many years, through the Fromm and the Field years, to the Carson and the Stetson years, and then the Stetson to the JT Daniel years. I mean, there was all sorts of things and conspiracies, man. We thought, you're a crazy old man for doing what you're doing, but you see what happened out of that whole process. So if, the one thing I like about it is that Gunnar Stockton and Ryan Puglisi, to me, are two of the most humble human beings in the world. And I'm telling you, they're going to work each other's butt off. Competition breeds success. I found out you want to get a kid to excel and play better, give him some competition. And the way I look at it is that, if I'm Ryan Puglisi, I want Gunnar Stockton to be waking up thinking, this is a good way, waking up thinking about me. Like he's saying, I bet he's already thrown 30 footballs out there at practice. He's already out there getting reps while I'm sitting here just eating my cereal for breakfast. I want him to have that mentality, because if he continues to pursue, and Ryan Puglisi has said that he wants to eat off the floor. He has that humble mentality to learn and get better. That's the reason why he wanted to come to Georgia. Because even during the Dylan Raiola time, when Raiola was committed to us, he said, that's not going to waver me. I'm still coming to Georgia. I want to be here. I want to fight in a phone booth. And that's what we got to see out of him as he continues to push Gunnar to be the best he can be, because Gunnar knows there's a very small window. He is now in that hierarchy of a quarterback at the University of Georgia, and he knows the expectations he's going to have. I think he's going to put his head down and go, because the main reason is he has the locker room. And that is something that, as you watched last year, the locker room almost implode and basically created all those inconsistencies that we saw. We've got guys that care about winning, and we've got guys that care about their quarterback. And, I hate to, really speak negatively on Carson Beck at all, but he lost our locker room last year, and Gunnar got it back. And we saw that happen right in front of our eyes. And so that's the reason why I think it's going to be a great off season to see who finally does take the first snaps at QB1, which is very easy to say it's Gunnar, but that doesn't mean that Ryan's not going to be pushing him every day. And honestly, God forbid something happened to Gunnar, I think Ryan can take the reins and be able to, Jake Fromm, he had to do the same thing. Jacob Eason, he didn't expect Jacob Eason to go down with a knee injury against Appalachian State, first game of the year. Jake Fromm said, give me the ball. Let's go. And I think Ryan would be that same kind of guy, but he's got to get the playbook under his belt a little bit more. He's got to get more cerebral with his reads, his check downs, understanding line of scrimmage, formations, adjustments. He's got to understand those processing skills. And something that I spoke with John about on our show with the Dawg dispatches, I said he has to get the three quicknesses available. He has to understand pre-snap quickness. He has to understand mid during the play, like the processing quickness, and then of course his physical quickness. And those are things that he's got to get better at to push Gunner every day. And I think, the beauty of it, because we know they're going to be competing every day, whoever comes out as QB1 next year earned it. Because I don't think there's going to be one snap every day that they're not sitting there thinking, okay, what can he do to make this guy work harder? And to me, Gunner's going to be probably that guy, even though I picked back in February that I thought Ryan might try to overtake him. But Ryan's got to play some ball games. That's the thing, man. We didn't get a chance to watch the quarterbacks play last year. We were in so many dogfights and playing from behind and scoring 7 points in the first half a lot of times. We didn't get a chance to see our other quarterbacks play. So hopefully this year we'll have some opportunity to see Ryan spin the ball a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. That's going to be pretty favorable. Those first three games, I think, pretty favorable. We might can get out to some leads and let Ryan play a little bit. I'm excited to see him, or at least the highlights from the spring game and hear about it. Also, I wanted to ask real quick, who's probably the third string? Because I feel like that's always kind of the key. Get an injury down, you got to back up. Mm-hmm. I know Ryan Montgomery kind of has the knee injury, right? So he's probably running with threes. I haven't really heard too much about him.
I wouldn't doubt you probably see a gentleman by the name of Coulter Ginn or Coulter Ginn. I can't think of his. I think it's spelled it's Ginn, but it's either Ginn or Ginn. He's from Perry, Georgia. And he's a good-looking kid, man. I am not going to lie. There's another kid there too. I can't not think of how his last name. I think it's Hezebah. He's kind of got Millender. Millender is his name, I believe. I can't remember if it's first or last name. But I think Ryan and Ginn and the other one that I mentioned are kind of probably playing off one another for that third and fourth spot, because Ryan Montgomery is, of course, recovering from his ACL. So I know, being a freshman incoming with an ACL issue, they're not trying to rush him. So he's probably at the bottom of the barrel right now. So I would say that you got Millender and Coulter Ginn fighting for that third spot. And I tell you, watching them, we got a chance. A couple people got in and got some video of the indoor practices of them getting ready for Notre Dame last year. Coulter Ginn, again, however it is, I love his form. I love his release. He's solid, looks very fluid with the football, throws a good rope. And, someone that I'm not saying that he's going to go out and prove anything, but he looks the part. I mean, he fits all the qualities of looking the part, but obviously, just like Ryan Puglisi looks the part, you got to go out and play the part too. So I would say it's either the Millender kid or Ginn, however you say it, will be the third player, the third spot right now.
Oh, interesting. I like those names too. So that'd be interesting to see. Maybe we'll see a little bit of them in the spring game.
Being a teacher, I pride myself on naming in names, and it drives me nuts that I cannot remember the other kid's name. But I'll look it up as soon as we get off the show today, because that's driving me nuts right now as we speak.
No problem at all. Names always give me problems. So yeah, more. And then one other one, because it is a hot name. Talk a little recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
Is kid out of Tennessee, Jared Curtis, 5-star. I think he's number 1 overall recruit in the nation. Got 247 here. What are you hearing? And then also, who does he remind you of a little bit? 6'4", 225. About as built like a quarterback as you can get.
Yep. The guy's name's Hezekiah Millender. I was close. I wasn't even close. Hezekiah Millender. Okay. I had to look it up. I had the last name right, though. But going off your question, I have been doing Jared Curtis breakdowns for a while. I think Jared Curtis would be a fit at the University of Georgia. I think he would be a name and a profile that would be a high-end recruit that would probably bring a couple of kids in that normally we wouldn't get. I think Jared looks the part. He has all the specs. He's got good footwork. He throws a laser beam. He's got depth. He knows how to layer it. He's very fluid with the football. He has the ability to process very well. The only problem that I have is it reminds me a lot of when you had Brock Vandegrift at Prince Avenue Christian, and he looked like a man among boys because most of the competition that he played was not that great. And that's the same thing I'm seeing in Jared Curtis's stuff. When you look at who he plays against, the competition is not very stout. So he looks really good out there when he's performing and all of his huddle stuff that he does. And when you look at his specific specs, because I know that, the kid can't help it that he's not playing against good competition. He's, he is where he is in his situation. But what I have to look for are more of the little smaller fundamental principles of what he would do. Because I think about what would he be like as a D1 Division I quarterback at the University of Georgia. Could he handle what he does? Well, if you look at his height and his weight, he fits all those profiles. 6'4", 225, big hands, throws a rope, layers footballs, has a lot of moxie in him. You can see that he throws the long ball very well. Seems to have sort of that moxie you want to see in a quarterback. So I think he fits all the standards that you want to see. And quality-wise, I know his family, his mom and dad specifically, want him to be at Georgia. He's fighting out against Oregon right now, and Dan Lanning is trying his best to land him out there. But here's two names also you need to be thinking about. There is a high possibility. There's another kid out in Texas that I really like too a lot. That if Jared Curtis, I think they're waiting on what Jared Curtis decides. And it's coming up pretty soon because he basically took it down to Oregon and Georgia. If he decides to go to Oregon, I think Bo Bentley could be the guy that we get from Texas. And this guy's just come on the radar this year as a junior. Unbelievable amount of specs that he's got on his state championship winning team this year. Unbelievable. Carries a lot of just that it factor you want to see in a kid. He's a bigger version of Gunnar Stockton, but yet to me, he throws the football very well. He runs the football very well, makes good decisions. When you're a state championship caliber quarterback, you understand what it's like to play in big games. Not to say that Gunnar didn't. Gunnar was part of a program at Raven County for 4 years. I mean, he played under a good friend of mine, Coach Mike Davis, who took over there. I think he had Gunnar his last 2 years, gave him the opportunity to really just break a lot of records. In fact, he did break records that Trevor Lawrence had set and Deshaun Watson had set. So, there's some things Gunnar does very well too, but I'm just saying that I think that's going to be the difference. Another kid that I really like too, and I know that South Carolina was on his radar. I think he had committed and decommitted, but his name is Landon Duckworth, I believe is his name. Duckworth definitely is his last name, but he's another dual threat kind of guy that also shows a little bit of hinting that Georgia could be a possibility for him. But I really do think this is what we're waiting on. We're waiting on what Landon decides to do. Is he going to let his heart take him out to Oregon, probably for a little bit more of a paycheck and have the Oregon brand? Or does he want to come to Georgia and do what's best for him and obviously what his parents like? He's from the Nashville, Tennessee area roughly. So, he'll be closer to home, being on the East Coast, help his family out to come see him play and do well. And if he decides to come to Georgia, then that sends those other guys elsewhere, I think. But if Jared decides to go out to Oregon, I think, Bo Bentley might be the guy that we're looking at, or possibly even Duckworth. I think Bo Bentley, though, before Duckworth. So we'll have to just wait and see on Jared Curtis's decision. But I think we've got some good guys in the wake of who's going to be that big coveted quarterback recruit for us this year for 2026.
Interesting. We got some good names there. So I do want to put you on the spot. So if you had to pick right now your crystal ball, Coach Hayes, Jared Curtis, we're here in early April, what would be your pick?
Well, I did have one good pick on your show, and I said to your group about C.J. Wiley coming back after he committed to Florida State. I think Jared Curtis stays with us. I think he stays. Okay. He's already committed once and decommitted. I would be very surprised if he decides to take his family from Nashville, Tennessee, roughly all the way out to Oregon to try to get them out there, as much as that would be cool. And again, I'm not against Dan Lanning. I love him to death too. I think he's a great coach and doing a great job with Oregon, but I just think that fit's going to be better for him at Georgia. I really do.
You heard it here. A little crystal ball from Coach Hayes. Jared Curtis, he's going to be with the good guys. He'll be a dog.
Yes, sir.
And Coach Hayes, how do we follow you on social media and all your YouTube and all your content?
Guys, if you want to find me out there, first off, Trey, thank you for having me. I appreciate all that. You can follow me on YouTube, X, Instagram, TikTok at Coach Hayes Huddle. I not only do podcasting, live streaming, I'm also part of the Dawg Dispatch with John Smith with @John Tweet Sports. You can also find him at all those places as well. And then my show is actually at Coach Hayes Huddle, where I do podcasting, live streaming. I also am part of breaking down X's and O's. I have over 20 years of coaching experience, and I enjoy connecting fans to the fundamentals of football. And so if you're really interested in that kind of stuff and you want to come over and see me do player profiles, do just X's and O's on just, running schemes and passing schemes and trying to understand the game a little bit better, I'm your guy. So Trey, I appreciate you having me on, brother. I appreciate your time and efforts with me.
Man.
And thank you for allowing me to share that with everybody out there.
Really appreciate it. Check out Coach Hayes, over 2,000 subscribers and growing on the Coach Hayes Film Room. Also on Dawg Dispatch. Guys, co-host John there. They're over 1,000 subscribers. So, yeah, really appreciate him. Check it out. Give him a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I think another one would be really good because I know he's getting big is you ever thought about you and Brooks Austin doing a little co-star with each other and maybe a little breakdown? I think that would be really cool because you guys, if you want to get nerdy, man, listen to you guys. That'd be awesome.
Getting a chance to talk with Brooks would be like I'll give you a story real quick and it won't be too long. When I was at North Murray in Chatsworth, which is about 30 minutes northeast of Calhoun where I live, I was coaching over there. That's obviously the McConkey years. That's when Lad McConkey was at North Murray. I coached him and his older brother. I used to drive, and we had a guy that we hired on staff that became our defensive coordinator. And for the first 3 or 4 months, he didn't have a car. And he lived in Calhoun too. So me and him, I'd carpool with him and I'd drive him to work every day. His name was Courtney Braswell. And Courtney now is a defensive coordinator and assistant defensive coordinator with the Cincinnati Bearcats now. So he has now worked his way up into the Division I program with the University of Cincinnati. And but I remember those days of going to work with him, man. And I'm offensive coordinator mine. And I have defensive thoughts too. And he's a defensive coordinator. And he's telling me, what would you do here, Hayes, if I did this to you? And I'm coming back at him saying, well, what if I go in motion like this? And then I bring him back the other way. Hey, I'm going to put your guy in conflict with that. We did that every morning. It was phenomenal. By the time in the afternoon, we were mentally exhausted from practice. So we just came home, got something to eat, and just sort of vegged out. But in the morning, man, we were going back and forth. And I think that's very similar to what me and Brooks would do. Brooks has a very keen mind. He has a very perceptive mind. He's around these kids a lot. He's built relationships with a lot of these recruits, the kids that have been recruited. And I think that's what's special that connects him a little bit better right now. I don't have that luxury because I don't get to do this full time because I am teaching still. And so to get me in the room with Brooks and be able to sit down and let's just talk ball, because I would love to just talk about what he did because I think he played it shorter. And he was, I think, center or guard. That's the reason why he understands, offensive line play really well. And he's obviously learned a lot of stuff as he's grown and matured with it as well. Because he's the one who actually inspired me to start doing this. To kind of tell you the truth, I watched one of his breakdowns one day, and I'm sitting there going, why am I not doing something like that? I understand that. I know what he's doing. So trial and error, troubleshooting. 2 years later, here I am, man. So it's exciting. So yeah, if you hear me out there, Brooks, love to link up with you sometime. Maybe we can talk some ball, man.
Yeah, man, let's make it happen. Brooks Austin versus Coach Hayes. Let's do it.
Awesome. Let's don't put a versus there. Let's make it more of a,
collaboration.
We're on the collaboration. There we go. We're collaborating on the same side.
Meeting of the minds. That'll be great.
Yes, sir.
Spread the joy.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Trey.
Yeah, man. Really appreciate Coach Hayes coming on. And if you're still around, make sure to like, subscribe, share the Doghouse podcast. Really appreciate it.